The massive chamber of the Galactic Council stretched endlessly in all directions. Representatives from 300 different species filled the floating platforms that hovered at various heights throughout the vast space. The air shimmered with translation fields, converting thousands of languages into understandable speech for each being present. At the center of it all, Ambassador Crixtel of the Vorthak Empire stood tall on the primary speaking platform. His four arms gestured dramatically as his mandibles clicked with authority. The Vorthak were known throughout the galaxy as the most powerful military force, their fleet numbering in the millions of ships. The humans have refused our demand for tribute, Crixtel announced, his voice booming through the chamber. They control only 12 systems. 12. We control over 8,000. Yet they dare to deny us access to their hyperspace lanes. A murmur rippled through the assembled representatives. The human ambassador, Sarah Chun, stood quietly on a lower platform. She was small compared to most species present, barely reaching the height of a Vorthak's lower torso. Her dark hair was pulled back in a simple style, and she wore the plain gray uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps. Ambassador Chun. Crixtel turned his attention to her. Your species has been part of this council for merely 50 years. You are newcomers to the galactic stage. Perhaps you do not understand how things work here. Sarah stepped forward, her platform rising to meet Crixtel's level. We understand perfectly, Ambassador. You want to use our hyperspace lanes to move your warships through our territory. The answer remains no. The Zilani representative, a being that looked like a massive crystalline spider, chimed in with harmonic tones. The humans speak wisdom. I have studied their history. There is something different about them. Crixtel's mandibles clicked in annoyance. Different? They are primitive. They still use projectile weapons alongside their energy beams. Their ships are ugly, utilitarian boxes compared to our elegant vessels. They have no psychic abilities, no natural armor, no enhanced senses. They're soft, weak creatures. An old voice spoke from the shadows. It belonged to Yathri, the eldest member of the council, representing the ancient Etherian race. I too have studied the humans, Crixtel. Did you know that on their homeworld, they were not the strongest creature, not the fastest? They had no claws, no fangs, no venom. Exactly my point, Crixtel exclaimed. And yet, Yathri continued. They became the dominant species. Do you know how? The chamber fell silent. Even Sarah Chun turned to look at the ancient being. They would hunt, Yathri said simply. When a predator attacked a human, the human would survive, gather others, and hunt that predator. Not just the individual animal, but its entire pack. They would track it for days, weeks even. They call it persistence hunting. They would walk their prey to death. Primitive barbarism, Crixtel scoffed. Perhaps. But consider this. When humans first achieved spaceflight, they were attacked by the Creel Raiders. The Creel destroyed one human colony ship. Just one. The humans hunted down every single Creel ship in existence. It took them 30 years, but they found them all. The Creel no longer exist. An uncomfortable silence filled the chamber. Many representatives shifted nervously. Sarah Chun spoke up. That was a long time ago. We've changed. We prefer peace now. We just want to be left alone to develop our worlds and contribute to galactic civilization. But you still refuse our demands, Crixtel pressed. Because allowing warships through our space would make us complicit in whatever wars you wage. We've seen what your empire does to species that resist you. We want no part of it. Then, you have chosen to be our enemy, Crixtel declared. The Vorthak Empire formally declares its intent to subjugate the human systems. Any who stand with them will share their fate. The Zilani representative's crystalline form chimed urgently. I formally lodge a protest. The humans have done nothing wrong. They are a peaceful species who have contributed much in their short time here. Medical advances, agricultural techniques, art, music. This is unjust. Others began to speak up, some supporting the humans, others remaining silent out of fear of the Vorthak. The debate raged for hours. Finally, Yathri spoke again. I have one final thing to say. In my 3,000 years of life, I have seen many species rise and fall. The strongest are not always those with the biggest fleets or the sharpest claws. Sometimes the strongest are those who simply refuse to give up. Ever. The old being turned to Crixtel. I warn you now as a friend. Do not attack the humans. They will hunt you forever. Crixtel laughed, a harsh sound like grinding metal. Let them try. Our fleet will arrive at their border in 7 days. If they are wise, they will surrender. Sarah Chun activated her communicator, speaking quietly into it. Then, she looked up at the assembled council. I just informed my government of the Vorthak Declaration. They asked me to relay a message. She paused, looking directly at Crixtel. We will not surrender. We will not run. And if you attack us, we will not stop until the threat is ended. This is not a threat. It's a promise backed by the entire human race. Brave words from a species with only 200 warships, Crixtel sneered. We'll see, Sarah said simply, and her platform descended as she left the chamber. In the days that followed, the galaxy watched with bated breath. Some species quietly began moving their assets away from the border regions. Others increased their defenses, unsure of what would happen. The Vorthak fleet, comprising 50,000 warships, assembled at the edge of human space. It was the largest gathering of military might in recent galactic history. Crixtel himself commanded from the flagship, a massive dreadnought called the Empire's Wrath. The humans had pulled back from their border colonies, concentrating their small fleet around their core worlds. Everyone expected them to negotiate, to seek terms. They did not. Instead, a single message was broadcast on all frequencies from Earth. To all ships of the Vorthak Empire, you have been warned. Turn back now. This is your only chance. Crixtel laughed when he received it. All ships advance. Show these primitives the might of the Vorthak Empire. The fleet jumped into hyperspace, heading for the human colony of New Horizon. They expected an easy victory, a quick capitulation. They had no idea what they had just awakened. As the Vorthak fleet emerged from hyperspace near New Horizon, they found the planet seemingly defenseless. No orbital stations, no defensive platforms, just a beautiful blue-green world hanging in space. Pathetic, Crixtel muttered. They didn't even try to defend it. All ships prepare for planetary bombardment. We'll make an example of this world. But as the fleet moved into position, something strange happened. Thousands of small objects began rising from the planet's surface. They were too small to be ships, moving too slowly to be missiles. What are those? Crixtel demanded. His sensor operator examined the readings. Unknown, sir. They appear to be probes? They're not armed. The objects spread out through the system, taking positions at various points. They did nothing threatening, just watched. Ignore them. Begin bombardment, Crixtel ordered. The first volley of energy beams lanced down toward the planet. But instead of hitting the surface, they struck an invisible barrier that flared to life, revealing a planetary shield of incredible strength. Impossible, Crixtel exclaimed. Our intelligence said humans didn't have shield technology this advanced. Before he could issue new orders, alarms began blaring throughout the fleet. Ships on the edge of the formation reported being hit by something, but their sensors showed nothing. Sir, the probe things, they're transmitting something. It's marking our ships somehow. I can't stop it. Crixtel was about to respond when space around them erupted. Human ships, the ugly utilitarian boxes he had mocked, appeared from nowhere. Not 200 of them, but thousands. They had been hiding in the system's asteroid belt, powered down and invisible. But that wasn't what made Crixtel's blood run cold. It was the message that appeared on every screen in the fleet, in perfect Vorthak script. You were warned. The hunt begins now. The battle over New Horizon lasted exactly 47 minutes. To the shock of the watching galaxy, it was not the glorious Vorthak victory everyone expected. The human ships moved with perfect coordination, unlike anything seen before in space combat. They didn't fight like individual vessels, but like a single organism with thousands of parts. The ugly, box-like human ships revealed their true nature. Each one was covered in modular weapon systems that could be swapped out even during battle. What looked like cargo sections opened to reveal missile bays. Sensor arrays transformed into directed energy weapons. The ships literally reconfigured themselves in real time to match whatever threat they faced. But it was their tactics that truly terrified the Vorthak. The humans didn't fight honorably, ship to ship. They swarmed. They used their probes to mark targets, and then multiple ships would concentrate fire on single vessels. They planted mines that drifted invisibly until Vorthak ships tried to retreat. They used their own damaged ships as kinetic weapons, ramming them into larger Vorthak vessels. Pull back. All ships pull back. Krixtel screamed as he watched another of his dreadnoughts explode under concentrated fire from a dozen human vessels. The retreat was chaotic. The Vorthak fleet, despite still outnumbering the humans, fled back into hyperspace. They had lost nearly 3,000 ships. The humans had lost perhaps 200. But as the Vorthak emerged back in their staging area, they discovered something that made their defeat even more bitter. Every ship in their fleet was still marked by whatever the human probes had done. The marks couldn't be removed, couldn't be jammed, couldn't be hidden. It was like each ship had been painted with an invisible signature that broadcasted their location across space. In the Galactic Council chambers, emergency sessions were called. Representatives who had been confident in Vorthak supremacy now whispered nervously among themselves. Sarah Chun stood before them again, but this time she was not alone. Beside her stood Admiral James Peterson, a grizzled human veteran with scars on his face and steel in his eyes. "The Vorthak Empire attacked us without provocation," Sarah said calmly. "We defended ourselves. That should have been the end of it." "Should have been?" the Zalani representative asked. Admiral Peterson spoke up, his voice rough like grinding stone. "They killed civilians on New Horizon before we could raise the shields. 43,000 human colonists. Men, women, children. They were teachers, farmers, scientists, families. They were under the protection of Earth and her colonies." A chill ran through the chamber at the tone in his voice. "Surely you don't mean—" someone began. "The hunt has begun," Peterson said simply. "Every Vorthak ship that participated in the attack has been marked. We know where each one is every moment of every day. We will find them all. That's thousands of ships across hundreds of systems." A representative exclaimed. "Yes," Peterson agreed. "It is." Krixtel, who had been recalled to face the council, stood up angrily. "This is madness. You cannot possibly hunt down our entire fleet. We have allies, defenses, the protection of the Empire." Peterson turned to look at him, and something in the human's eyes made the mighty Vorthak warrior take a step back. "Your allies will learn to step aside. Your defenses will learn they cannot stop us. And your empire will learn what it means to wake the hunters." Over the following weeks, reports began coming in from across the galaxy. Human ships appeared in system after system, always targeting specific Vorthak vessels. They didn't attack anyone else, didn't damage infrastructure, didn't harm civilians. They simply appeared, destroyed their marked targets, and vanished. The Vorthak tried everything. They hid their marked ships in the center of massive fleets. The humans sent stealth ships that planted bombs and vanished before they could be caught. They put the marked ships in heavily defended stations. The humans used long-range kinetic weapons, launching projectiles from outside sensor range that struck with devastating accuracy. They tried to negotiate. The humans didn't respond. They tried to threaten human colonies. The humans accelerated their attacks. They appealed to the Galactic Council. Sarah Chun stood before the assembly and spoke words that would be remembered for generations. They sowed the wind. Now they reaped the whirlwind. 3 months into what became known as the Long Hunt, something changed. The humans began broadcasting messages before each attack. The messages were always the same, listing the names of the 43,000 civilians who had died on New Horizon. Each marked ship would hear the entire list before the human struck. It was psychological warfare at its finest. Vorthak crews began to refuse to serve on marked ships. Some tried to abandon their vessels. Mutinies broke out as desperate crews tried to escape their fate. The Vorthak Empire, in desperation, tried one last gambit. They gathered their remaining marked ships, nearly 30,000 vessels, into one massive fleet and headed for Earth itself. If the humans wanted a final battle, they would get one. The journey to Earth took 2 weeks through hyperspace. During that time, human attacks on other marked ships ceased. The galaxy held its breath, waiting to see what would happen. As the Vorthak fleet emerged in the Sol system, they expected to find Earth's defenses to face the assembled human fleet in one glorious final battle. Instead, they found Earth seemingly undefended. No fleets, no orbital stations, nothing but the blue-green cradle of humanity floating in space. Crixtel, still in command despite his earlier failure, felt a moment of uncertainty. This had to be a trap, but sensors showed nothing. Earth was helpless before them. "Sir," his communications officer spoke up, voice trembling. "We're receiving a transmission from Earth." "Put it through." The view screen lit up, showing not a military command center, but what appeared to be a school classroom. Human children, small and fragile-looking, sat at desks. An elderly human woman stood at the front of the class. "Class," the teacher said, "today we're going to learn about persistence. Can anyone tell me what that means?" A small human child raised her hand. "It means never giving up, Mrs. Anderson." "Very good, Susie." "And why is persistence important?" Another child spoke up. "Because humans are persistence hunters. We never stop." The teacher smiled. "That's right. Even when we're outnumbered, even when we're outgunned, we never stop. We keep going until the job is done. Just like our ancestors on the African savanna, we chase our prey until they can run no more." Crixtel felt his mandibles go dry. "Cut the transmission." But it continued. The teacher looked directly at the camera. "Now, class, let's count how many Vorthak ships have come to visit. 1, 2, 3. As the children began counting in their innocent voices, space around the Vorthak fleet erupted. Not with ships this time, but with something far worse. Millions upon millions of small drones emerged from hidden positions throughout the solar system. They had been waiting dormant for this moment. The drones didn't attack. They simply attached themselves to every Vorthak ship, burrowing into hulls with molecular precision. Within minutes, every ship was infected with thousands of them. A new transmission came through, this time from Admiral Peterson. "Every one of those drones contains an antimatter charge. Not enough to destroy your ships, but enough to cripple them. They're networked together and monitored by quantum entanglement. If even one drone is tampered with, they all detonate." Crixtel's voice was hollow. "What do you want?" "Surrender. Unconditional. Every marked ship. Every crew member who participated in the attack on New Horizon. They will all face justice for their war crimes. And if we refuse, then we activate the drones. Your ships will be crippled, but not destroyed. You'll drift in space, life support failing slowly. And we'll broadcast your distress calls to the entire galaxy, but no one will come. Because they'll know that any ship that tries to help will join the hunt." The bridge of the Empire's wrath was silent except for the hum of instruments. Crixtel looked at his crew, saw the defeat in their eyes. They had awakened something primal in the humans, something that all their military might couldn't defeat. "We surrender." Within hours, human boarding craft were docking with Vorthak ships. The crews were taken into custody with surprising gentleness. They were not mistreated, not tortured. They were simply processed, documented, and prepared for trial. The trials themselves became legendary in galactic law. Each defendant was given fair representation. Evidence was presented meticulously. The families of the New Horizon victims testified, not with calls for vengeance, but with simple statements about who their loved ones had been. It was this, more than anything, that broke the Vorthak. They had expected human brutality, barbarism. Instead, they faced human justice, implacable and thorough. Crixtel himself stood trial for 60 days. When he was finally convicted and sentenced to life imprisonment, he asked to make a statement. "I underestimated you," he said to the court. "I thought your refusal to give us passage was weakness. I thought your small fleet was vulnerability. I thought your compassion was softness. I was wrong about everything." He paused, looking at the families of the victims who sat in the gallery. "I know my words mean nothing, but I am sorry. Not just for my defeat, but for my arrogance in thinking you were mere prey. You're not prey. You were the hunters, and we never stood a chance." The aftermath of the long hunt changed the galaxy forever. The Vorthak Empire stripped of much of its fleet and military leadership, reformed into a democratic confederation. They became one of humanity's closest allies in later years, having learned the hardest lesson of all. The years following the long hunt brought unexpected changes to the galaxy. The Galactic Council established new laws regarding warfare, with specific provisions about attacking civilian populations. These became known as the New Horizon Accords, and they fundamentally changed how conflicts were resolved among spacefaring species. But it was the change in how other species viewed humans that was most remarkable. The ugly, utilitarian human ships became symbols of implacable justice. The simple gray uniforms of human diplomats carried more weight than the elaborate regalia of ancient empires. When humans spoke in council, everyone listened. Sarah Chun, now promoted to senior ambassador, found herself mediating disputes between species who specifically requested human involvement. They trusted human fairness, having seen that even in their darkest hour of vengeance, humans had chosen justice over genocide. One such dispute involved the Melody Syndicate and the Crystalline Hegemony, two powerful factions fighting over mining rights in the neutral zone. The conflict had been escalating for months, with both sides massing fleets. Ambassador Chun, the Melody representative, a being that looked like a shifting cloud of luminous gas, pulsed with agitation. The hegemony has violated 17 treaties. They must be stopped. The crystalline representative, similar to the Zalani, but made of darker, more aggressive crystal formations, vibrated with anger. The Melody speak lies. Those systems were ours before they even achieved spaceflight. Sarah listened patiently to both sides for hours, taking notes on her simple datapad. Finally, she stood up. I've heard enough. You both have valid historical claims. You both have legitimate grievances. And you're both acting like children. The room fell silent. No one spoke to representatives of major powers that way. Except humans did, and everyone let them. Here's what's going to happen, Sarah continued. You're going to share the mining rights. 50-50 split of all profits. Joint operations to ensure neither side can cheat. And human observers to make sure you play nice. This is outrageous. Both representatives exclaimed simultaneously. Sarah's expression didn't change. The alternative is that you go to war. Tuzansti, med million. Your economies collapse from cost. And in the end, you'll probably end up with less than what I'm offering you now. She paused, letting that sink in. But hey, it's your choice. Just remember, if this escalates and civilians get caught in the crossfire, humanity will take an interest. And you've seen what happens when we take an interest. The two representatives looked at each other, then back at Sarah. Within 3 hours, they had signed the agreement. This became the pattern. Humans didn't conquer the galaxy. It didn't need to. Their reputation as fair mediators backed by the promise of relentless pursuit of justice made them the de facto peacekeepers of known space. But not everyone was happy with the new order. In the dark spaces between stars, remnants of various defeated empires and criminal organizations banded together. They called themselves the Free Fleet, though they were anything but pirates, slavers, and warlords united by their hatred of the human-imposed peace. Their leader was Vrax Tor, a former Vorthak admiral who had escaped the long hunt by being on leave during the New Horizon attack. He had watched his empire humbled and his species transformed, and he burned for revenge. The humans have made the galaxy weak, he proclaimed to his assembled fleet of outcasts. They preach peace while holding a blade to everyone's throat. They speak of justice while denying us our rightful place as conquerors. His followers, a motley collection of species who had all felt the touch of human intervention, roared their agreement. But they have a weakness, Vraxtor continued. Their compassion, their need to protect the innocent. We will use it against them. The Free Fleet strategy was simple but effective. They would attack civilian targets, but only in small groups. They would strike and vanish before human response fleets could arrive. They would make the humans look weak, unable to protect those they claim to defend. For months, the plan worked. Small colonies on the frontier were raided. Trading vessels disappeared. The attacks were random, unpredictable, impossible to prevent entirely. The Galactic Council grew restless. Some members began to question human effectiveness. Whispers started that perhaps the humans weren't as invincible as they seemed. Sarah Chun and Admiral Peterson stood before the council, facing hard questions. 14 colonies attacked in 6 months, the new Vorthak representative said, not unkindly. Thousands dead or enslaved. Where is the famous human persistence? Peterson's jaw was tight. We're hunting them. Every ship, every base. But they're using tactics designed specifically to counter our methods. They learned from the long hunt. Perhaps, suggested a sly voice from the shadows, belonging to the Serpentine Coalition representative, it's time for the humans to step aside. Let others handle security for a change. Sarah and Peterson exchanged glances. They knew this was exactly what the Free Fleet wanted, to undermine human authority and return the galaxy to the chaos of might makes right. No, Sarah said firmly. We will find them. We always do. But privately, the human command was worried. The Free Fleet was smart, careful. They used stolen ships, changed identities, hid among civilian populations. Traditional hunting tactics weren't working. It was a young human analyst named David Kim who proposed the solution. We're thinking about this wrong, he said during a strategy meeting. We're trying to hunt them like we hunted the Vorthak. But these aren't military targets following military patterns. These are criminals acting like parasites. Your point? Admiral Peterson asked. We don't hunt them. We make them hunt themselves. The plan was audacious in its simplicity. Humans began establishing safe zones, areas of space where any ship could find refuge. No questions asked. Medical care, repairs, supplies, all free. The only rule was no violence within the safe zones. Critics called it naive. The Free Fleet laughed at human stupidity. Surely these safe zones would become havens for criminals. They were right. Criminals did flock to the safe zones, including members of the Free Fleet who needed places to repair and resupply just like anyone else. What they didn't realize was that every safe zone was also a listening post. Humans didn't arrest anyone, didn't interrogate. They just listened. They watched. They learned. Slowly, patiently, they built a map of the Free Fleet's operations. They identified patterns, supply lines, hidden bases. They learned which ships worked together, which captains trusted each other, which crews had grievances. And then they began the Whisper campaign. Anonymous messages started appearing in Free Fleet communications. Captain Grex is skimming from a loot. The Serpentine crew is planning to defect. Vraxtor is planning to abandon the outer fleets if the humans attack. All lies, but plausible lies. Lies based on the intimate knowledge gained from months of patient observation. The Free Fleet began to tear itself apart. Trust evaporated. Captains turned on each other. Crews mutinied. Ships that had worked together for months suddenly found themselves in firefights over imagined betrayals. Vraxtor tried to hold them together, but paranoia had taken root. When he called for a gathering to address the problems, half his captains refused to come, suspecting a trap. The humans waited until the Free Fleet was at its weakest, fractured, and paranoid. Then they struck, not with massive fleets, but with surgical precision. They knew exactly where to hit, exactly when each target would be most vulnerable. In a coordinated operation spanning 100 systems, human forces struck simultaneously. Free Fleet ships found themselves surrounded before they knew they were under attack. Bases were captured intact, their defenses having been sabotaged by their own paranoid crews. Vraxtor himself was taken alive, captured in his sleep by human special forces who had spent weeks mapping his flagship's routines. The operation lasted less than 24 hours. The Free Fleet, which had terrorized the frontier for over a year, simply ceased to exist. At the trials that followed, one captured pirate captain asked the question on everyone's mind. How? How did you do it? David Kim, who testified as an expert witness, smiled. You thought our strength was our persistence in the hunt. But that's not quite right. Our strength is our patience. We can wait. We can watch. We can learn. And when we finally move, we don't miss. The dissolution of the Free Fleet marked the beginning of what historians would later call the Long Peace. Not because conflicts ended entirely, but because everyone knew that somewhere human eyes were watching. Human minds were learning. Human patience was waiting. The galaxy had learned the lesson the Vorthack had paid so dearly for. You could fight humans and perhaps even defeat them in battle, but you could never escape them. They would hunt you with weapons, or with words, or with patience, but they would hunt you, and they would never ever stop. But peace, as the humans knew better than most, was not a passive state. It required constant vigilance, careful maintenance, and sometimes terrible choices. The galaxy was about to learn just how far humans would go to protect the peace they had built. A new threat was stirring in the unexplored regions beyond the galactic rim. Ancient, patient, and hostile to all organic life. The first scouts were already probing known space, and what they found there had made them hungry. The real test of human resolve was about to begin. The first contact with the Devourers came at a small research station on the galactic rim. The station, jointly operated by humans and Etherians, was studying ancient artifacts when they detected something moving in the void between galaxies. Dr. Elena Vasquez, the human chief researcher, would never forget her first look at the data. "It's not a ship," she told her Etherian colleague, Yathri the Younger. "It's organic, but not like any life we know." The thing approaching them was the size of a small moon, a writhing mass of what looked like living metal and corrupted flesh. It moved without engines, somehow pushing against the fabric of space itself. And it was hungry. "Send a warning to the Council," Elena ordered. But it was too late. The Devourers struck with weapons that defied understanding. Not energy beams or projectiles, but something that simply unmade matter at the quantum level. The station's shields, designed to stop conventional attacks, were useless. In her final transmission, Elena managed to send crucial data about the attacker. Her last words would echo through human space. "They eat everything. Stars, planets, life. Everything. Stop them, or we all die." The Galactic Council convened an emergency session. The footage from the research station had shaken even the most battle-hardened species. The Devourer hadn't just destroyed the station. It had consumed it, breaking down matter and energy to fuel its own growth. "What are we dealing with?" The Vorthack representative asked Admiral Peterson, who had been analyzing the data. Peterson's face was grim. "Based on the quantum signatures and growth patterns, these things are at least 1,000,000 years old. They're not from our galaxy. Best guess? They're what's left of civilizations that tried to transcend physical existence and failed catastrophically." "Fail how?" Sarachin asked. "They tried to become gods." Yathri the Elder spoke from his shadowed alcove. "I've seen such attempts before, in the earliest days of my people, to merge consciousness with the fundamental forces of reality. Most who try simply die, but sometimes they become something worse. Hungry ghosts that exist between states of being." "How many are coming?" someone asked. Peterson pulled up a long-range sensor map. The entire council chamber gasped. Beyond the rim, thousands of signatures were moving toward the galaxy. Some were small as ships. Others were the size of planets. "The entire galactic rim will be hit within 6 months," Peterson said. "After that, they'll work their way inward. Based on their consumption rate, they'll reach the core worlds within 3 years." Panic began to spread through the chamber. Species that had been enemies for centuries suddenly found themselves facing extinction together. Old grudges seemed petty in the face of annihilation. "What can we do?" The melody representative pulsed frantically. It was Sarah Chun who answered. "We hunt." The chamber fell silent. "Hunt those things." The Serpentine representative hissed. "Did you not see what they did to the station? Our weapons are useless." "Our current weapons are useless," Sarah corrected. "But humans have always been good at making new tools when we need them. And we need them now." She stood, addressing the full council. "I propose a full military alliance of all council species. Complete technology sharing. No secrets, no held-back advantages. Everything on the table. Impossible." Several representatives shouted. "Share our most guarded military secrets?" "The alternative is extinction," Sarah said flatly. "Choose." The debate raged for hours, but, in the end, fear won. The Galactic Alliance was formed, with humanity at its head. Not because they demanded it, but because everyone else insisted. They had proven themselves against the Vorthack and the Free Fleet. If anyone could find a way to fight the Devourers, it would be the humans. The first battles were disasters. Traditional fleets were simply consumed. Energy weapons fed the Devourers. Kinetic weapons passed through them like they were ghosts. Nuclear weapons only made them grow faster. But humans had one advantage. They learned for failure. Dr. David Kim, promoted from analyst to head of the new Tactical Innovation Division, studied every failed engagement. He noticed something others had missed. They're not invulnerable, he told the War Council. Watch this footage from the 7th Fleet's last stand. Right here, when the cruiser Defiant overloaded its jump drive and detonated. See how the Devourer recoiled. It was damaged? Peterson asked hopefully. Not damaged. Disrupted. The hyperspace tear interfered with whatever holds them together. They're being caught between dimensions. Hyperspace weapons might be our answer. It was insane. Weaponizing hyperspace was considered impossible by every species. The energy requirements were astronomical. The risk of creating uncontrolled tears in reality was enormous. Naturally, the humans decided to try it. The first hyperspace torpedo was tested at an abandoned system far from any inhabited worlds. The weapon was crude, basically a jump drive rigged to fail catastrophically. When it detonated, it tore a hole in space itself that lasted for nearly 3 minutes before reality reasserted itself. It works, Kim reported, but we'll need thousands of them. And delivery systems that can get close enough. Leave that to us, Peterson said with a grim smile. Humans have always been good at getting close to dangerous prey. The shipyards of 100 worlds retooled for war production. The ugly, boxy human ships that had once been mocked were now the template for the entire Alliance fleet. Modular, adaptable, and now armed with humanity's desperate invention. The first real test came at the Battle of Terminus Point. 3 Devourers, each the size of a small city, had cornered a refugee fleet from the Rim colonies. 50 million lives hung in the balance. Admiral Peterson personally led the attack. All ships, remember your training. These things want to eat us? Well, humans have a saying about biting off more than you can chew. The human ships didn't engage at range like traditional space combat. They dove straight at the Devourers, using short hyperspace jumps to appear inside their defensive fields. It was insanely dangerous. One miscalculation meant appearing inside the creature itself. Instant death. But humans had always been persistence hunters. They had learned to judge distance and timing with lethal precision. Ship after ship delivered their hyperspace torpedoes at point-blank range, then jumped away before the detonations. Space itself screamed as reality tore. The Devourers, beings that had consumed countless civilizations, found themselves being unmade by the very forces they used to exist. They tried to flee, but human ships pursued relentlessly, jumping ahead to cut off escape routes. No merci, Peterson Kemandif. No escape. We end them here. When the battle ended, all 3 Devourers were gone. Not destroyed in any conventional sense, but scattered across dimensions, unable to reform. The refugee fleet was saved. But the victory came at cost. 30% of the human ships had been lost, consumed, or destroyed by the spatial distortions. The crews knew the risks and paid them willingly. The success at Terminus Point changed everything. The Alliance fleets, trained by human tacticians and armed with hyperspace weapons, began pushing back. The Devourers, who had never encountered meaningful resistance, found themselves being hunted. Humans taught the galaxy their methods. Not just the weapons, but the mindset. Track your prey. Learn its patterns. Strike when it's vulnerable. Never let up. Never give up. Hunt until the job is done. The Vorthack, who had once been humanity's enemies, became their most devoted students. Their martial culture, tempered by human justice, made them exceptional Devourer hunters. Former pirates from the Free Fleet, given amnesty in exchange for service, used their skills at hit-and-run tactics. The war raged for 2 years. Entire sectors were evacuated. Worlds were lost. But Slowly, inexorably, the tide turned. The devourers, faced with prey that fought back, began to retreat. It was then that the true horror revealed itself. A massive signature appeared on long-range sensors, moving from the void between galaxies. It was a devourer, but unlike any seen before. This one was the size of small star system, a writhing mass of consumed civilizations dating back millions of years. The Prime Devourer, the first of its kind, the template from which all others had spawned. How do we fight that? Even Admiral Peterson sounded shaken. David Kim studied the data, running calculations. We don't fight it. We trap it. The plan was audacious beyond belief. They would create an artificial hyperspace bubble around the Prime Devourer, essentially cutting it off from normal space. But the energy requirements would need the combined power output of dozens of stars. It's impossible, the crystalline hegemony's best scientists declared. So as faster-than-light travel, once, Sarah Chun reminded them. So it was defeating the Vorthak Empire with 200 ships. So as stopping the Free Fleet without firing a shot. Humans specialize in impossible. Every species contributed. The Melody, beings of pure energy, offered to channel stellar power directly. The Etherians shared ancient knowledge of dimensional manipulation. The Vorthak provided military escort. Even the Serpentine Coalition, master traders, and spies used their networks to gather resources. The construction took 6 months. A massive array of hyperspace generators, each one the size of a space station, arranged in a perfect sphere a light year across. At the center, they would lure the Prime Devourer. How do we bait it? Yathri the Younger asked. Admiral Peterson smiled grimly. With the one thing it can't resist. Life energy. Specifically, human life energy. We've noticed they seem particularly drawn to us. Maybe because we're persistent enough to survive partial consumption longer than most species. You're volunteering to be bait? Not just me. Every human ship captain has volunteered. We'll take turns leading it into position, keeping it focused on us. The final battle was not a battle at all, but a hunt on a cosmic scale. Human ships danced at the edge of destruction, staying just out of reach of the Prime Devourer's consumption field. When one ship's captain grew exhausted, another would seamlessly take over, maintaining the deadly game of chase. For 7 days and nights, they led it deeper into the trap. The Prime Devourer, driven by hunger accumulated over eons, followed single-mindedly. It had never known prey that could evade it for so long. The frustration made it reckless. On the 8th day, it reached the center of the array. Now, Sarah Chun commanded from the control station. 1,000 worlds worth of power flowed through the generators. Space itself groaned under the strain. The hyperspace bubble began to form, a shimmering sphere of twisted reality. The Prime Devourer realized the trap too late. It lashed out with weapons that could unmake matter, but the bubble was not matter. It was a fold in space itself, powered by the combined will and technology of a united galaxy. Slowly, inexorably, the bubble closed. The Prime Devourer's roars of rage shook the fabric of reality, but it could not escape. With a final flash that was visible across half the galaxy, the bubble sealed. The Prime Devourer was not destroyed. Destroying it might have released all the consumed energy and matter in an explosion that would sterilize the galaxy. Instead, it was imprisoned in a pocket dimension, cut off from our reality forever. The bubble would need to be maintained and guarded, but the threat was contained. Without their progenitor, the remaining devourers became disorganized, easier to hunt. Within a year, the last of them had been destroyed or driven back into the intergalactic void. The victory over the devourers marked a fundamental shift in galactic civilization. The unity forged in the face of extinction did not fade with the threat. Instead, it evolved into something unprecedented, a true galactic community with humanity as its heart. The hyperspace prison containing the Prime Devourer became a symbol of what could be achieved through cooperation. Every species contributed to its maintenance, and the station built around it became a center for scientific collaboration. Former enemies worked side by side, united by the shared experience of survival. Sarah Chun, now bearing the title of First Speaker of the Galactic Alliance, stood before the assembled representatives on the 5th anniversary of the victory. Her hair had grayed during the war years, but her voice remained strong. "We stand here today not as conquerors or subjects, but as partners," she began. "The war taught us that our differences are our strength. The Melody's energy manipulation, the Vorthax's warrior spirit, the Etherian's wisdom, the crystalline hegemony's precision, each was crucial to our survival." She paused, looking at each delegation. "But most importantly, we learned that the hunt never truly ends. There will always be new threats, new challenges. The question is, will we face them divided or united?" The answer came in the form of the Perpetual Compact, a treaty that went beyond military alliance. It established principles that would govern the galaxy for millennia to come. No species would prey upon another. Disputes would be settled through mediation, with human arbitrators available for those who requested them. Technology would be shared for the benefit of all. And, most importantly, any threat to one would be considered a threat to all. But it was the inclusion of the Vorthax Redemption Clause that truly showed how far the galaxy had come. Former enemies could become allies through genuine change and restitution. The Vorthax Empire, once the terror of known space, had become one of humanity's staunchest defenders during the Devourer War. Their transformation set the template for others. The Free Fleet survivors, who had fought alongside the Alliance, were given the choice of amnesty or exile. Most chose amnesty, becoming the core of a new frontier guard, using their knowledge of piracy to prevent others from following their path. Braxtor himself, the former Free Fleet leader, chose a different path. In prison, he had watched the war unfold, seen his own people fight alongside humans. On the day of his scheduled release, he made an unexpected request. "I wish to take the Hunter's Oath," he told the parole board. The Hunter's Oath was something new, born from the war. Those who took it pledged to spend their lives protecting others, to hunt threats to peace as relentlessly as humans had once hunted their enemies. It was a lifetime commitment, with no possibility of release. Admiral Peterson, who sat on the board, studied him carefully. "You understand what this means? You'll never command your own ship again. You'll follow orders from those you once considered enemies. You'll die in service if necessary." "Understand," Vraxtor said. "I have seen what happens when the strong prey upon the weak without consequence. I have seen what happens when that pattern is broken. I choose to be part of the solution." He became one of thousands who took the oath, forming an elite force that patrolled the dark spaces between stars, hunting slavers, pirates, and worse things that lurked in the void. The peace was not without its challenges. Some species struggled to adapt to a galaxy where might no longer made right. The Serpentine Coalition, masters of manipulation and intrigue, found their traditional methods obsolete in a society that valued transparency. It was a young Serpentine named SLYSS who proposed a solution. "We have spent millennia perfecting the art of deception," she told the council. "What if we turn that skill to detecting deception in others?" The Serpentine Truth Seekers became the galaxy's most effective investigators, using their natural talents to uncover corruption and conspiracy before they could take root. They worked closely with human analysts, combining instinct with methodology. 10 years after the Devourer War, a new challenge arose. Signals from a distant galaxy suggested another civilization, one that had also survived its own devourers. First contact protocols, developed jointly by humans and Etherians, were activated. The beings they encountered were unlike anything in their own galaxy. Crystalline entities that existed partially in subspace. They called themselves the Echo. Their first message was sobering. "You have contained your devourer. We destroyed ours. The cost was 30% of our galaxy rendered uninhabitable. We come seeking knowledge of your methods, and perhaps alliance against the greater threat." Greater threat? Sarah Chun asked during the first formal communication. The Echo's response sent chills through everyone present. The Devourers are not unique. They are symptoms of a greater disease. Civilizations that fail in their transcendence become Devourers. But what of those that succeed? What do you think happens to those who successfully become gods? The implications were staggering. If failed transcendence created Devourers, what did successful transcendence create? And were those beings friendly, hostile, or utterly indifferent to lesser life? Humanity's response was characteristically practical. "Then, we'd better be prepared," Admiral Peterson said. "We've gone from hunting animals to hunting monsters. Maybe it's time we learned to hunt gods." The Echo were invited to join the Alliance, bringing with them technologies and perspective that expanded everyone's understanding. They marveled at human persistence, at the way these seemingly fragile beings had united a galaxy through sheer determination. "You are not the strongest species we have encountered," the Echo ambassador noted, "nor the most advanced. But you may be the most dangerous." "Why?" David Kim asked. "Because you never stop. Others would have accepted the Vorthack's dominance. Others would have let the Free Fleet's terror stand. Others would have fled from the Devourers. But you hunted them all, and won." As the decades passed, humanity's role evolved. They were no longer just mediators or warriors, but teachers. The Hunter Academies they established accepted students from every species, teaching not just tactics, but philosophy. The core lesson was always the same: persistence in the pursuit of justice, patience in the face of adversity, and the courage to stand when others would flee. Young Vorthack learned alongside Melody. Crystalline beings shared classrooms with Serpentine, all united by the human example that differences in strength or ability mattered less than determination and cooperation. But perhaps the most significant change was in humanity itself. Exposure to so many different perspectives and capabilities had accelerated their evolution, not physically, but mentally and culturally. Human children grew up in a galaxy where traveling between stars was mundane, where alien playmates were normal, where the impossible was just another challenge to overcome. These new humans retained the persistence of their ancestors, but combined it with the best traits of their allies. They could think in the long terms of the Etherians, fight with the precision of the Vorthack, investigate with the cunning of the Serpentine, and see the universe through 1,000 different lenses. When the first human achieved what the ancients had failed at, a successful transcendence that didn't result in becoming a monster, it surprised no one. The being that had once been Dr. Elena Vasquez, rebuilt from quantum echoes preserved at the research station, returned with a message. The universe is vast and full of wonders and terrors in equal measure. But I have seen the future, and it is bright. Not because the dangers will cease, but because we will face them together. The hunt continues, always. But now we hunt not as predator and prey, but as guardians of life itself. She became the first of the shepherds, transcended beings who chose to protect rather than dominate. Others followed, from every species, proving that transcendence need not mean abandonment of mortality or compassion. The galaxy had learned the lesson written in humanity's genes since their days on the African savanna. The greatest strength is not in the individual, but in the pack. Not in the weapon, but in the will to use it for others. Not in the hunt itself, but in knowing when to hunt and when to protect. As Sarah Chun retired, passing leadership to a council representing all species, she gave one final speech. "We called our story Do Not Attack Humans. They will hunt you forever." But that was only half the truth. The full truth is this: attack anyone under human protection, and we will hunt you forever. Stand with us, and we will hunt your enemies with the same determination. Choose justice, and we will help you hunt injustice wherever it hides. She looked out at the assembled beings, so different yet united. The council once refused to listen to our warning. Thank you for that, because it led us here to this moment where the hunters have become the guardians, where former enemies are now family. The hunt continues. It will always continue. But now we hunt together for a future where all can thrive in peace. And to those who would threaten that peace, whether they come from our galaxy or beyond, whether they are mortal or transcended, our message remains the same. We are humanity. We are the hunters, and we never, ever stop. The chamber erupted in applause, a sound that would have been impossible just decades before. Vorthack mandibles clicked in approval. Melody energies pulsed in harmony. crystalline beings resonated with joy. The serpentine performed their sinuous dance of celebration. And the humans? They simply smiled, already planning for the next hunt, the next challenge, the next impossible task that they would somehow make possible. Because that's what humans did. They persisted, they endured, they hunted, and they won. In the vast darkness between galaxies, ancient things stirred, drawn by the light of a young civilization that had done the impossible. They came expecting easy prey, as they had found in 1,000 other galaxies. They would learn, as all others had learned, that this galaxy was different. This galaxy was protected. This galaxy had humans. And humans would hunt forever,